Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to our school read aloud. Today I'm going to be reading chapters 13, 14, and 15 to you from the book Bat and the End of Everything. Chapter 13, Planning for the Future. Remember, Mom said, looking at Bat in her rearview mirror, Lawrence is the boss, okay? You do what he says. They were on their way to Mom's vet clinic. The first week of summer, Bat and Janie had spent the mornings at home together while Mom worked. But this week, Janie was taking a class at the pool, and Bat got to go to the clinic with Mom. What if he tells me to let all the dogs go out of their pens? Bat asked. Lawrence would never do that. You know he wouldn't. I know, Bat said. But what if he does? Mom smiled. Do whatever Lawrence says, within reason, okay? Okay, Bat answered. Mom turned on her blinker, waited for a break in traffic, and turned left into the parking lot. There was a small red brick building with the neat sign that read, Valerie Tam, DVM, Doctor of Veterinarian Medicine. That was what Bat was going to be too one day. But today, he would be an assistant to a veterinarian technician, Lawrence, which was also a pretty good thing to be. Mom parked the car in her usual spot and turned off the engine. Bat, whose hand had been resting on top of Thor's carrying case, unlatched his seatbelt, opened his door, and scooted out of the car, bringing Thor with him. He's getting heavy, Bat told Mom as they headed for the clinic's front door. He's getting big, Mom agreed. But Bat was glad that was all she said. He was in particularly good mood, and he didn't need any reminders that Thor was almost old enough to be released. The low brick building had a heavy glass door, which Mom opened. Bat angled through it, being careful not to bang Thor's carrying case on the way in. It was difficult for Bat to put into words the feelings he had about the veterinarian clinic. It was a lot of wonderful feelings mixed together like soup ingredients. He could feel his face stretching into a grin as he looked around the clinic waiting room. It smelled like lavender and peppermint because of the cleaning spray that they used to clean up pet accidents. Then the phone rang, and Suzanne answered it from her spot behind the counter. Dr. Tam's office, she said cheerfully. And that made Bat feel proud, because Dr. Tam was his mom, and that was her clinic. From somewhere in the back, Bat heard a dog bark, and that made him feel excited, because it reminded him that this building was full of animals, and there was nothing that Bat loved more than animals. Suzanne finished her phone call and said, Good morning, Dr. Tam. Good morning, Bat. Good morning, Thor. Bat lifted Thor's carrying case and set it on the counter so that Suzanne could get a good look at the skunk kit, who was awake and rustling around. She rubbed her fingers against the mesh door to scratch Thor's face. He pressed his leathery, dark nose flat against it and sniffed her hand. My, what a handsome skunk you are, Suzanne said admiringly. That was something Bat really loved about coming to the vet clinic. Everyone here loved animals, almost as much as Bat did. My dad's new friend's name is Suzette, Bat told Suzanne. Oh, said Suzanne. That's almost the same as my name. Almost, Bat said. Your dad has a new friend, Bat? His mom asked. He nodded. We met her at the donut shop, but only for a minute because Janie felt sick. We took our donuts back to Dad's apartment and ate them there instead. Janie didn't tell me she felt sick when you guys were with your dad, Mom said. She felt a lot better when we got back to the apartment, Bat said. She ate 2 donuts. Bat looked up at Suzanne and saw that she was looking at his mom with her eyebrows raised in 2 arches. Don't worry, he said. I don't think it was contagious. I feel fine. Suzanne looked at him and smiled. Thank you, Bat. I'm not worried about getting sick. Mom cleared her throat. Okay, she said. Let's head back to the kennels. Suzanne, do I have any messages? Suzanne handed Bat's mom a small stack of thin, rectangular yellow sheets. Thank you, Mom said, and she pulled open the door that led into the back. Bat picked up Thor's carrier and followed her through the door, watching as she took her white coat from its hook, just like she always did, and put it on. He read the words embroidered on it, Dr. Tam, DVM, and he let himself imagine that he was the one putting on the coat for a day of seeing patients. When I grow up and become a vet, Bat said, maybe we could both work here, and we could put a second hook on the wall, and we could hang our coats next to each other's, and it wouldn't matter who wore which coat, because we would both be Dr. Tam, DVM. Mom's fingers were buttoning her coat, but they stopped when Bat spoke. She reached over and put a hand gently on top of his head, a warm, soft weight that Bat liked. "There's nothing that would make me happier," she said. Bat had his mom's warm hand on his head and Thor's carrier in his hand, and the whole day of helping at the vet clinic in front of him, he took in a deep breath of lavender peppermint, and he felt wonderful. Chapter 14, An Assistant's Assistant. In the back room, in front of the row of kennels, Lawrence stood looking over a list on the clipboard. He had a pencil in his hand. "Hi, Lawrence," Bat said. "We're here." Lawrence looked up and smiled. "Bat boy, I've been looking forward to seeing you and Thor. I haven't gotten to babysit him since summer started." "It's been nice staying home," Bat said. "I've had lots of time to work with Thor. I'm trying to clicker train him." "Are you?" Lawrence said. "So how's that going?" "Pretty good. I can get him to wait for a treat for 10 seconds or so." Lawrence said. "Are you sure it's a good idea to spend time training him? After all, pretty soon he's going to be out on his own." Bat changed the subject. "What are we going to do today?" Lawrence looked at his list. "Let's see. Mrs. Harina will be dropping off Pumpkin this morning for a bath and a nail trim. Want to help me with that?" "Yes," said Bat. "It will take at least 2 people to give Pumpkin a bath. He's enormous." "He's too big for the wash basin," Lawrence agreed. "We'll have to use the big tub. I think he's pure mastiff," Bat said happily. He took Thor's carrier over to the far kennel, where Lawrence had already laid out fresh towels for him. He set the carrier on the ground and unzipped its door. Thor peeked out its head, sniffed around a bit, and then waddled slowly out of the carrier, straight towards Bat. Bat picked him up, one hand under each of Thor's armpits, and brought the skunk up to his face. "Hello, little buddy," he whispered, and then he kissed the very beginning of Thor's white stripe just above his leathery, dark nose. Thor nudged Bat's face with his nose and tucked his head into the crook of Bat's neck, so Bat hugged him close and rocked a little, the way that Thor liked. "Wow," said Lawrence. "Thor really does like you." "I like him too," Bat answered. "Well," said Lawrence, "we all like Thor, but he never snuggles with me like that when I'm taking care of him." Bat didn't say anything to this, but he felt pleased to hear that Snore only snuggled with him. Bat turned to the kennel and tipped Thor towards it. The skunk Kit waddled inside and began to sniff around in the blankets. Bat shut the kennel door, double-checking to make sure it was latched. And just in time, too, Suzanne's voice came over the intercom, sounding a little panicked. "Lawrence, Pumpkin is here. Please come and get him right away." "What do you say, Bat boy? Want to fetch Pumpkin with me?" Bat did. In the waiting room, Mrs. Harina held tightly to Pumpkin's thick leather leash. On the other end, Pumpkin strained forward towards the counter, where he must have smelled the treat dish. Slowly, Mrs. Harina was towed forward, her feet sliding across the linoleum. "Oh, good," Suzanne said when Bat and Lawrence came through the door. "That was fast." Lawrence unwound the leash from around Mrs. Harina's hand. She sighed with relief, and Bat noticed that her hand was blotchy red and white from where the leash had pinched it. "Pumpkin, sit," said Lawrence. Pumpkin's dark-tipped ears perked up, and he flopped his muscular hunches down. Looking up at Lawrence, a thick, clear ribbon of drool stretched down towards the ground. "Gross." "He's always so good for you," said Mrs. Harina. "I can't believe it," Bat said. "But I think Pumpkin is even bigger than he was when Janie and I came over." "No," said Mrs. Harina quickly. "He hasn't grown any more." "We'll weigh him today when we give him his bath," Lawrence said. "No need for that," said Mrs. Harina. "We'll keep a record," Lawrence said. She sighed. "Weigh him if you have to, I guess, but he isn't an ounce heavier, I can tell you that." "He's not an ounce heavier," Bat said, "because he's pounds heavier." Lawrence and Suzanne both laughed. Mrs. Harina sighed again. "I'll be back to pick him up this afternoon." She left through the glass door, and Bat took one of the treats from the dish on the counter and held it out to Pumpkin, whose long pink tongue scooped it out of Bat's hand with one lick. "What do you say, Bat?" Lawrence said. "Are you ready to get to work?" Bat was. Just then, the door slammed open and a voice said, "Something's wrong with baby cakes." Chapter 15. Head Tilt and Sniffles. I wonder what this chapter is going to be about. It was Jenny. She burst through the door, her hair wild, her face wet with tears. She seemed surprised to see Bat standing there, but she repeated, "Something's wrong with baby cakes." "Is Baby Cakes your pet, dear?" Suzanne said from behind the counter. "Baby Cakes is our class pet," Bat said. His head began to buzz as if it were filled with angry bees, and his stomach twisted. "Suzanne, go get Mom." Suzanne stood up from her desk and disappeared into the back. Lawrence left too to take Pumpkin to the kennels. An older lady pushed through the door. She held Baby Cakes wrapped in a towel. Bat could see thick streams of mucus coming from the rabbit's nostrils and noticed that Baby Cake's head was sort of flopped over to one side. "Is the vet available?" said the lady. Maybe she was Jenny's grandmother. "Okay, I'm back," said Lawrence. "What seems to be the problem?" Bat felt a grateful wave of relief that Lawrence had come back so quickly. "It's Baby Cakes," Bat said. Jenny was crying loudly now. She dropped down onto the vinyl bench and had her head in her hands. Lawrence stretched out his hands. "May I?" he asked. The lady, who was probably Jenny's grandmother, handed him the bundle of bunny. "She had a cold for a couple of days, but we thought it was just a case of the sniffles. And then this morning she was holding her head funny, tilted to the side like that." Lawrence took Baby Cakes and held her gently. "Hey there, little lady," he cooed. Bat came up and close and peered at the bunny. He could only see her head since the rest of her was swaddled tightly, but he noticed that Baby Cake's eyes looked kind of dull and watery. A bubble of mucus grew out of her left nostril. "I shouldn't have let you be Baby Cake's caretaker," Bat said. Jenny cried louder. "Let's focus on the patient, Bat Boy," said Lawrence. Lawrence was right. "Here I am," said Bat's mom, emerging from the back. "Hello, Baby Cakes. Feeling a little under the weather, are you?" "She's congested and her eyes are watery and she's tilting her head to the left," Bat said. "Okay," said Mom. "Let's take her to the exam room." Lawrence led the way. Bat followed. His mom had dropped her arm around Jenny's shoulders, and Jenny sniffled and hiccuped and wiped her eyes. The lady, who was probably Jenny's grandmother, brought up the end of the line. It was a very crowded exam room. Lawrence set Baby Cakes down on the metal exam table and unwound the towel she was wrapped in. He kept a hand on Baby Cake's back to keep her from hopping away, even though Baby Cakes didn't look like she wanted to hop anywhere. Mom had taken her stethoscope out of her pocket and placed the ear tips in her ears. She pressed the other end, called the bell, to Baby Cake's side. She would listen to the bunny's heart and lungs. Bat knew this. He couldn't help with listening, but he could pay close attention to Baby Cake's condition. He noticed that Baby Cake's fluffy coat was smooth and well brushed and without any matting or tangles. That meant that Jenny had been grooming her every day, and it was hard to tell without holding the bunny, but it didn't look like Baby Cakes had lost much weight, if any, and her paws were clean, which meant that Jenny had been keeping her enclosure nice and fresh. Bat's mom took the stethoscope off and placed it back onto her pocket. "Her lungs sound clear and her heart is strong," she responded. "Jenny's parents are out of town, and I've been taking care of her and her brothers for the last few days," said Jenny's grandmother. "We didn't notice anything wrong with the bunny until the day before yesterday, when she started to look like she had a little cold. And then this morning, when we went to feed her, she was doing this funny thing with her head. So we brought her right in." Jenny kept crying. Poor Jenny. "Rabbits don't get colds," Bat said. Bat's mom shone a light onto Baby Cake's eyes. Her head was still tilted, and when the light hit her left eye, the one on the low side of her head, she didn't blink. They don't get people's colds, but they do get respiratory infections that can look like a cold," Bat's mom said. "It's called the sniffles." Lawrence stood still with his hands gently holding Baby Cakes. The bunny was so fluffy that his fingers disappeared into her fur. Bat's mom lifted Baby Cake's right ear and shone the light inside. "Ah," she said, "it looks like the sniffles have caused an ear infection. That's what's causing the head tilt. Bat, Jenny, do you want to take a look? Bat did. He walked over to the exam table and peered into Baby Cake's ear. It was red and swollen looking. Is she going to be okay? Cried Jenny. Bat's mom turned off the light and stroked Baby Cake's head. I think she'll be just fine, she said. We'll keep her here for a few days to monitor her and start her on a course of antibiotics. She'll need eye drops for her left eye, too. She won't be able to blink that eye until the head tilts resolves. Bat was right, Jenny said quietly. I shouldn't have been the one to take Baby Cakes home. It's my fault she's sick. Bat looked again at Baby Cake's smooth, tangled, free coat, her clean, unstained feet, her nice, plump body. You're a good caretaker, he said. You've taken good care of Baby Cakes. Jenny wiped her eyes. They were red and swollen, and her nose was dripping. Baby Cake's coat is brushed, and her feet are clean, and she's been well fed. It's not your fault she's sick, Bat said. Jenny took a deep, ragged breath, and then she smiled. Thank you, Bat, she said. That's nice of you to say. I said it because it's true, Bat answered. All right, well, it looks like the next time we read, you'll be hearing from Miss Daniels, and she's going to be reading to you chapter 16, House Call. Have a great day, friends. I hope that you enjoyed this read aloud, and we will see you soon. Bye.